Okay, it is about 6:35 on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022, and council is meeting at this time with Province of Manitoba Municipal Relations Assessment Services for a presentation. I will hand you the mic so that we can hear you.
And you can introduce yourself then.
Okay, so this is loud enough? Okay. My name's Ed Mtg. Can Councillor Steve hear me? Okay, all right. My name's Ed Mtg. I'm the manager of the Selkirk Assessment Services office. From our office, we handle the assessments for 24 different municipalities, assessing 93,000 properties, and we, by requirement through legislation, are required to update those assessments on those 93,000 properties every 2 years. So it's a pretty big responsibility. We cover an area as far west as Interlake, so Fisher, Armstrong, those municipalities. We go as far east as Lac-Dubois and Alexander, and as far south as the Capital Region outside on the northern side of Winnipeg. So we have 14 assessors in our office. So our staffing levels are up a bit from when we presented last time to council. So we're very happy about that. We've been very busy these last 3 years. The pandemic affected everybody in terms of assessment. We weren't allowed to inspect the insides of buildings for the last 2 years. So that would have a huge impact on what we do. We're just starting to resume that, but we have some staff that up until recently had never been inside a building as an assessment officer with the province. So that impacted us. Another impact of the pandemic was that we were supposed to be here a year ago. And once the pandemic hit, the decision was made at that time to delay the reassessment 1 year. And so our reference was supposed to be April 1, 2020. It's now April 1, 2021. At the time, the thinking was that, I know a number of economists were predicting that the real estate market was going to decline substantially. There was quite a bit of concern about that happening, and of course with the pandemic hitting in March of 2020 and our reference date being April 1st, 2020, at that time there was concern that the pandemic may have a big impact on that. So it was delayed by 1 year. So, but we've been busy. We've been working on aerial image projects throughout the province, and I'll be talking about that today, and that's a project that we'll be working on in Vic Beach this year. We've also been inspecting a lot of sales. So in the last 3 years, from April 2018 to April 2021, there were 14,000 properties that sold in our district. So roughly about 1 in 7 properties. And that's important for us to review because those sales determine the assessments for everybody else. And not every sale is what we would call a valid sale. We go through a sales verification process where we try to determine if a sale is valid or invalid. Was it a willing buyer selling or buying from a willing seller? And typically in a negotiation, you're not entirely happy with what you get for a property, and when you're buying, you're maybe not entirely happy with what you're paying, but that's a sort of the sweet spot for negotiation. You want there to be an agreement, and if someone feels they got a really good deal, that's probably not a valid sale. And if someone paid way too much for a property, that's not valid either. So we try to look at the average. From those average sales, determine assessments for everyone else. In Victoria Beach, there were 268 sales over that 3-year time period. Victoria Beach, in the past, there's been issues with not enough sales sometimes. For example, you know, on the shoreline, for example, a lot of those properties don't transact. They often stay in the family, and so when we get a sale, we look at that very closely. So of the 268 sales in Victoria Beach, there were 140 that we deemed to be valid. So So those 140 sales are what we use to place a value on the 1,900 rules that are within Victoria Beach. So the report before you is, it says impact of reassessment 2023. This is a tax impact report that we prepare for all municipalities. I could go through the thing line by line, but typically I focus on 3 pages. Pages 2, 4, and 5, and those are the important ones because that's where all the numbers are, and you see the bottom line impact of the reassessment on the municipality. So on page 2, there's a chart here that talks about the changes in the municipality's taxable assessment. So these are the assessment changes that come into effect next year, 2023. They don't impact property owners this year. We send out notices this year, so if anyone has an issue or a concern, they can contact us and we can review that with property owners. Most of the time, people phone and say you're way too high, and then we'll review that with people. But sometimes we get people phoning and telling us we're too low. I think you're missing this or missing that, and so we look at that as well. So province-wide, the average assessment in Manitoba is going up about 10%. In the case of Winnipeg, Victoria Beach, it's 14%. Most of that is just change in market conditions, but also things like new construction can impact that figure, improvements to existing properties, etc. But most of it's market driven. So now Victoria Beach has a very unique tax base because it's so concentrated in single-family residential. Of the 24 municipalities that we look after, I don't think any other one has a concentration of 98+% in single-family residential, but that's the reality here. So in a reassessment here, there isn't much tax shifting, say, from property classes, because sometimes we have shifts from farm properties to single-family residential. But here it's clear, it's almost all residential. That's a healthy increase of almost 14%, just under 5% a year. There's other classes. There is farm, a very, very small portion, and that's fractions of a percentage of the total assessment base for Victoria Beach. That's going up by 4.2%. The commercial component, 7.5%, and the institutional, just under 13%. And this chart is looking only at the portion assessment. Now, just because an assessment increases doesn't mean the taxes go up. And sometimes when the assessment drops, doesn't mean the taxes are going to drop either. So sometimes, unfortunately, that's not clear when people get the assessment notices. I wish it was, but we don't know what the budget is going to be. So on page 4, we have a chart. And there are some assumptions that we make with this chart. We assume we live in a perfect world where the budget that you have for 2022 will be identical in 2023. And I wish that was the case, but with the latest inflation figures, that's not the case. We also look at, there's the municipal component and the school component as well, right? So it's, I know when a person writes a check for the tax bill in Victoria Beach, that check is covering more than what's owed to the municipality. And that's, I won't make a comment about if that's fair or not, but that's a reality. But the school tax is a huge portion of that tax bill. So we have a chart on page 4 that looks at the total picture with school and municipal, and a chart on page 5 that looks just at the municipal portion. So if we look on page 4 where it says single family residential, and we're showing that there's the far right-hand column, you see 1.2%. What that is presuming that that same property owner who saw a 13.7% increase in their assessment, in a perfect world, if the budget was identical next year, would see a 1.2% tax increase. Not very realistic, but this is based on the numbers that we know, not the numbers we think that are going to exist. So please keep that in mind. And sometimes some municipalities ask, can we put this online, this report, you can put it on your website, but you almost need to put you need to clarify and figure out page 5, because it makes a statement that properties with an assessment increase less than 13.6% should see a municipal tax decrease. Well, in this inflationary time, that's not very realistic. So just put an asterisk next to that. On page 5, if we're just looking at the municipal levy, that same property getting a 13.7% increase in assessment would see a 0% change in taxes. Again, with this perfect world scenario. All the other classes are seeing decreases, which is good in some cases, but so much of your tax base is in single-family residential, it's almost affecting everyone the same way. Now, not every property will go up 13.7%. Some will go up 20, some will go up 10. And there's a number of reasons for that. Sometimes you may have, for example, full-time residents may change in value differently than in a seasonal type property. Or maybe that vacant waterfront parcel of land is changing in value differently than that backlot portion of land. So everything goes up differently, and that's what happens with these assessment purposes. Are there any questions about any of these numbers?
What date was the last assessment done, on which these figures would be based?
So the last reassessment was based on April 1, 2018.
So our municipality has enjoyed a tremendous amount of new construction, so your assessed values will not include those.
So we're still, this year, our assessor is currently out completing their inspections. Any additional added assessment that's being picked up right now isn't reflected in these numbers yet. So that would be reflected in the fall.
And no new construction?
Pardon me?
No new construction would show up yet?
Not yet.
No, it takes, there's a 2-year lag on numbers approximately?
Yeah.
So that's good news. In 2 years, our tax base is going to go up.
Well, it may go even up more based on our aerial imagery project, which I'll be talking about too. So there's that that's going to be going on as well. But in terms of what I would say, this is an electronic reassessment that we've worked on. We've revalued all the properties in Victoria Beach without physically inspecting all the properties in Victoria Beach. Whereas the project that we're working on this winter, we'll be reviewing every property in Victoria Beach. So there'll be some impacts from that. So there's a couple more items I want to mention on this aerial imagery, or on the assessment report. There's been some changes in the education tax credits, rebates, etc. And I don't have the breakdown of the number of permanent residents versus seasonal residents for Victoria Beach, but currently any permanent resident in Victoria Beach on their property tax bill would be receiving a homeowner's education school tax credit. And this year that credit will be $438. Last year it was $525, and the year before that it was $700. So that's kind of the bad news. The good news is that last year the provincial government started sending out checks on the education portion of property tax bills. And last year the checks were based on 25% of the taxes paid. This year it's based on 37.5% of the taxes paid. And next year it'll be based on 50% of the taxes paid. So
is that total taxes paid or just the school levy portion?
Just the school levy portion.
Okay, thank you.
So for example, if a person has a tax bill and it's $3,000 and $1,500 of it is school tax, $1,500 municipal, this year they'll get 37.5% of that $1,500 school tax bill.
How will that be paid?
It will be in the form of a check, as it was last year. And for next year, I don't know if that will be the same case, but that's how it is currently. So now that'll impact, so in the past, sometimes we would have cases where a full-time resident would be living year-round in Victoria Beach, and their tax bill, there's often a lot of neighbors talk and they call us, and why is this person's tax bill higher than ours? And sometimes the full-time residents would pay less because they were getting that homeowner's tax credit. The impact of that tax credit is being reduced somewhat because it's being reduced.
We get the homeowner's tax credit on our principal primary residence.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes that's the case in Victoria Beach, but many of the residents here are seasonal, so they haven't traditionally received that. But now, if they own another property in Manitoba, they will get that credit on that property, plus the check on their property in Victoria Beach. And Victoria Beach also has a fairly high percentage of out-of-province owners as well. So I believe they would receive that check as well. So it'll lessen the impact of any major tax fluctuations with this assessment. Now, with the reassessment on page 7, so what's happening is today, or it happened today already, reassessment notices have been mailed out to all the property owners in Victoria Beach today. So our office should start to get those calls by Thursday. And, you know, generally the calls aren't very positive, but once we explain why assessments are changing, it's, people are satisfied. At the bottom of page 7, we have some information for people. There's a new feature this year called My Property MD, where owners can now access their assessment notice and all the detailed information around that online by creating an account. So you can create an account for your property, you can go online, you can see what information we have on your property, you can see the square footage, the various features we have assessed on your property, and you can question that. That's fully transparent. We also have a provincial website that people can go onto. You can see what you're assessed for and everyone else in your neighborhood. And if a property sold by April 1st, 2021, all those sales are listed on the website as well. If anything sold after that date, that will be used for our next reassessment. We also have a 1-800 line. People can also email us their questions as well, and we're finding more and more so people are calling less and emailing more. And in terms of visiting our office, very few people visit our office, which is fine because we have lots of people working from home now. So even if they did come to our office, they wouldn't get to talk to a person necessarily. So it's there's lots of ways to contact an assessor. We're also having an open house in Victoria Beach right here on July the 2nd. I presume that's why? Well, go to a cottage area when people are there. So we'll be here July 2nd from 9 to 2. But there's other assessment open houses that we're having as well. And with those reassessment notices is a brochure listing all the various open houses that people can attend. So we're trying to be transparent and meet with people as much as possible. And so if someone's not happy with their assessment, I want to tell, if you get a call, the right response would probably be to say, call the assessor and they'll talk to you. Whereas some people want to file an appeal right away. Well, you do have the right to file an assessment appeal, but that's usually the last step. We try to talk to owners, show them sales, that sort of thing before we get to the appeal stage. But if someone does decide to file an appeal, the deadline is September 26th, and the board hearing date will be on October the 12th. So that's the reassessment report. And as mentioned, we just had 2 STEP students out and about in Victoria Beach taking street view imagery of properties, and they just wrapped that up today. And our assessor for Victoria Beach has also been out, and it looks like there's about 124 inspections she's either completed or will be completing over the next little bit. So it's fairly active, but when you're looking at the total number of properties, that's a pretty high percentage of inspections complete. Any questions about the reassessment?
Did you notify our municipality that you were having people out taking photographs of our
Yeah.
cottages?
Yeah.
Did we did not in turn advise our people.
They came to my house
Okay.
to reassess, so, but no, I don't think we.
Might not have been a bad idea, because
I
people.
don't
get
remember that, I
concerned.
remember getting the aerial imagery call, that you're gonna be doing that this fall, but I don't remember you telling us that you'd be able to door-to-door looking at property.
I believe I have the email I communicated, I don't think it was with yourself, but there was a message, because often when we're in an area like that, our staff they're driving provincial fleet vehicles, they have photo ID, and we advise municipalities, but if you didn't get that, I do apologize.
I started in April, so it was probably before that.
Yeah.
I didn't look through the 16th.
And that's ongoing now?
We just wrapped up that project with our students, and that'll help us with what I'll talk about now, it's aerial imagery. So, unless there's any more questions about the reassessment.
When do you do the aerial work?
We just wrapped it up. So,
Good, okay, because in summertime, there's a huge tree cover, so you can't
Yeah.
really see too much.
yeah. So, assessment services, over the last 7 years, we have completed desktop reviews of approximately 100,000 properties across Manitoba. And we've contracted with a company called Eagle View. It's a company out of the United States that specializes in aerial imagery. And what they do is they this year completed a fly of 22,000 properties for us. So it's not just in Victoria Beach, but throughout cottage country primarily this year. And typically they start the fly when the snow is leaving and before the leaves are on the trees. And there are some properties, like you can, if you have pine trees on your property, well, can't do anything about that. But the imagery is a high resolution quality. So if anyone's ever gone on to say Google Maps, or Google Earth, I should say, if you look at that imagery, it's, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. It depends on when it was flown. Sometimes you have street view imagery, sometimes you don't. It's very hit and miss, but what do you expect when it's free? The quality of the imagery that we get it's a very high quality resolution, where properties, when they're flown over several days, and there are multiple cameras attached to the planes, so they're not from drones, they're from actual airplanes. And there's 4 different angles that they're taking photos of. So there's the sort of the perimeter view, and then there's the over top-down view that they take as well. And the quality is quite exceptional. It's not perfect all the time, but it's quite good. And what we've been doing is using that imagery to complete desktop inspections. And we do that in the winter. So we've completed, this fly was just completed over the last couple of weeks. We don't have those images yet, and we won't have them until the fall. But we will, once basically our Board of Revision season is complete, we start doing our reviews of properties. Now, the reason we do it is there is an assessment standard that we need to maintain. It's a North America-wide standard, and what we need to do is touch every roll with a building every 8 years, and every bare land parcel every 12 years. And our traditional way of doing these inspections was jump in the car, drive out, get out of the car, get attacked by a dog, get stuck in snow, try to run a tape around a property, person comes out, what are you doing? Talk to the person, resume your job. You see a building, it's not always sure if it's on this property or the neighbor's property. Person hasn't talked to a person in 6 months, you're the lucky person, they'll talk to you for half an hour. So it's slow. We were averaging 5 inspections a day with the traditional method. And the last time we did a door-to-door review of Victoria Beach was in 2001. And And I'm the only person left in our office that was part of that project. And it's a great way to maintain fairness and equity between properties. Not everyone takes out a permit. Not everyone knows that they should take out a permit. Sometimes people start projects and don't finish them. Sometimes buildings exist where we didn't know they existed. So projects like this are extremely effective in equalizing the playing field for everyone. Because when, say, someone takes out a permit, and cottage areas are more prone to this, often it takes longer to complete a project because persons, they're trying to do it themselves, right? So you'll have a cottage shell, for example, and it'll stay that way for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or it'll improve a little bit every year. So what we end up doing is going back to the same property year after year. Meanwhile, you know, Bob down the street's been doing work on his property and didn't take out a permit. We don't know about it because there's all this tree cover and he's doing it on weekends and we're not out inspecting. So it's creating inequities, right? And it's almost penalizing those who take out the permits versus those who don't. And a project like this helps equalize that. So that's why we do it. One, to improve those inspection standards, to increase the fairness and equity. And you know, we don't always add to an assessment. We'll often remove assessment from a role as well. If buildings have fallen into disrepair, if they've been demolished, and the person didn't take out a permit to demolish, we don't know it got demolished, but through this imagery, we're able to update those roles. And at the end of it, all the assessments get updated to where they should be. And then, of course, whenever we change an assessment, notices are sent out to owners so they're aware that there's been a change in the value. So it's very transparent in that respect. So this past year, so I passed out an image. So this is the area that's being flown. So basically it's the entire RM of Big Beach. And so that's really good. This imagery we can't share with Victoria Beach. We can't give you the licenses because we have a contract with the provider. But if you wanted access to the imagery, it's available for a fairly reasonable amount. It does cost us a lot of money, but to get a license of existing imagery would be, I think it's about $1,500 for, you can get a license for all your staff type of thing. And it's really good for not only assessment, fire, police, bylaw enforcement, emergency response people, all of that. So really helpful. And together with the aerial imagery, we're using street view imagery that our students are completing because for the same reason, the trees sometimes get in the way. You can't really tell. Sometimes you can't tell something, but if we have those street view photos, that helps us immensely. So it's a total review of all the property in Vic Beach. So this past year, we completed a review of Broken Head, Beausejour, and Springfield. In the case of Broken Head and Springfield, those were not complete flyovers. They were partial because they're such large municipalities, so we focused our efforts on the urban parts. But Beausejour, we flew the whole community. And in the case of Beausejour, we added about $17 million in assessment as a result of the project. So it worked out to about $7,800 a roll. Now that doesn't always happen. Broken Head was a little bit less, Springfield was a little bit more, but it also generated a lot of additional assessment as well.
Will the finished product that you get from Eagle View be delineated by property boundaries?
Yes. Yes. And the nice feature is, so next year we'll be doing our second flyover in some areas. We're going to have change recognition built into it. So, because, for example, in East St. Paul, it will be our second time flying it. And the imagery will be able to identify anything that's been added and highlighted on the imagery. So that will be very helpful for us as well.
Do you think it would, sorry Mike, do you think it would ever take the place of getting a legal survey for a property?
No.
Okay.
The
so-
survey trumps.
Okay, okay.
But just use it
Yeah.
general idea would be able to.
But it shows the property lines, and sometimes, sometimes people will build a structure that encroaches on property lines, or sometimes, someone takes down a tree on their neighbor's property and doesn't realize it, so this is a visual to that. But I would definitely get a survey to 100% verify the property lines are what they are.
And how difficult is this software to utilize?
Easy, it's very easy. It has, what we love about it is that it has built-in measuring tools. So, for example, if there's some fantastic architectural marvels in Victoria Beach, and they take a long time to measure. But with the measuring tools in Eagleview, it goes very quickly, especially measuring multi-angled things like decks. In-ground swimming pools would take forever, like not even starting out with the tape measure. With Eagleview area tool in there is fantastic to use. And the provider provides training as well to our staff, so they're always upgrading the imagery and the tools, and we've found it to be very helpful. So it's sort of the new, it won't entirely replace in-person inspections. So often a project like this, we will identify kickouts. So we will find that we just can't verify something in a photo. And if that's the case, we'll do a physical inspection. And we also will do a random test of roughly 2% of all the properties involved in a project where we'll physically go and look at them to ensure that what we're seeing is what's actually there as well.
So this isn't LiDAR, this is a different technology.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, and I was skeptical when it first came because one of the reasons that attracted me to this job was I wasn't stuck behind a desk all the time. Well, now I am. So, it's a very good tool because so much of what we do, it's almost more the role of a referee, right? Like not everyone likes it, a referee, when they make the right call, but the right call is the right call. And a lot of what we do is just that when we're assessing a property.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Okay.
Steve, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. I got all the information, and yeah, it's very straightforward. I wish the property, the properties were, they go up by 14% for the site.
There you go.
We'll save a copy of the handout for you, Steve.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Gentlemen,
Thanks very much.
you do have an opportunity if you have any quick questions. You guys?
Who, us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No questions here.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Well, open house July 2nd, 9 to 2, I don't know.
That's where the questions will come in.
Yeah. Mostly, I mean, the way it works, if it's raining that day, we should have a number of people here. If it's a sunny day, I'm gonna have some upset staff.
That's here?
Yeah.
It's here, I think they're in the boardroom. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Ed.
We'll send them over from the country fair.
Yeah, well, safe travels back, Ed, and thank you very much. That was an informative presentation, so thank you. All right, does anyone need a couple-minute break, or are we fine to carry on? All right.
Anything, Graham? No?
I could use a couple of seconds to smarten up my laptop, which is just give me a moment to try some custom maintenance.
Did you bring a plug with you? You don't have too many people attending to it. I'm surprised. Oh, nice place.
We're still recording, gentlemen.
Yeah, Steve, we were watching the hockey game before we hooked up with you. I'll tell you what, it was tough.
Okay, I'm back.
All right, we are back. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will call this meeting to order. It is approximately 7:13 on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. We are meeting in the East Beaches social scene, and I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we're meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, the Anishinaabe, and the homeland of the Métis people. Thank you to Frank and Dennis for the setup. There is no one in the audience tonight, but we are recording the meeting for your listening pleasure. Introductions around the table, starting at my far left. Mike Bartmanovich.
Councilor Bartmanovich.
CAO Lon Turner.
Penny McMorris, Mayor.
Graham Randall, Councilor.
Erwin Kumka, Councilor.
And on the screen,
Steve Axworthy, Councilor.
thank you. All right, gentlemen, adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Erwin, thank you. Second? Mike, thank you. And we have some additions to the agenda, correct, Lon?
Yes, the speed limit reduction request, DFA funding request resolution, and first reading on bylaw 1634.
Okay, any further additions, gentlemen?
What was the first?
I suppose only one, just a quick discussion on the brush pickup date.
I've got that down in correspondence, but
Okay, if it's in correspondence, it's in correspondence.
I just, now that I say that, Steve, let me confirm that I've got that information in front of me.
Reduction of speed limit on Highway 59, yeah, kind of as you enter the gates of Victoria Beach there from the public workshop, that segment.
Okay, I'll leave it on, Steve. I don't have it. I've just been thinking about it off and on. All right, any further additions, gentlemen? So we've got single-use plastics, bylaw 1634, speed limit reduction, provincial trunk highway 59 from PR 504 to 8th Avenue, and the disaster financial assistance resolution, and comments or updates on the brush pickup dates. Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Erwin, did you? Thank you. Carried. Minutes of the regular meeting of council of May 17th, 2022 have been circulated to all council members. Be it resolved, the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. May I have a mover?
I'll do that.
Graham, thank you. Second? Mike, thank you. Any comments, errors, omissions, deletions?
I've reviewed the minutes, they look to be in order.
You do? Hearing nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. We don't have any delegations tonight, so we'll move on to accounts and finances. Be it resolved, the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable checks 10167 to 10234 in the amount of $258,096.71. Visa statements dated May 21st in the amount of $9,535.67. Month of May payroll in the amount of $100,226.33. May I have a mover? Erwin, thank you. Second? Mike, thank you. Erwin, do you have any comments on the accounts?
A couple of items. We're making progress on the refurbishing of the bakery. We're making some progress on the refurbishing of the bakery, and a number of payments have been made to local contractors and equipment providers. Failing that, the balance of the items appear to be routine. As we know, as we get into spring, there's more activity, and that results in more payables.
Correct. Any comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. I appreciate you putting Steve facing me, actually, Mike. I don't have to keep turning around and this, so thank you. All right. Business arising from the previous meeting. I know we don't have anything on our agenda. I just wanted to bring forward that Mr. Justa had some questions that he posed about Valley Fiber. at the last meeting, and I know we did get a response, so have we, or can we forward that response to Mr. Justa
You bet.
to answer his questions, please and thank you. And then we had a watershed presentation last month, and we haven't had a discussion about that, so I just want to put it in your heads that we should think about whether or not we want to be a part of this watershed district. It's the Northeast Red watershed. I'm afraid I haven't had any time to look at it, look at their information, but there were some things in the presentation that could apply to us, some shoreline work or shoreline initiatives, I believe.
And some cooperation amongst municipalities.
Right.
Starting with Alexander, of course.
Now, Alexander is not a member, I
Yeah,
checked, but
They were thinking about it.
are they? Okay. Steve, any comments on that?
No, anything else right now.
Okay. All right, well, it's something to consider. Erwin?
Can I just go back to the question about Valley Fiber? Are the answers that we received from Valley Fiber, are those not available for public review?
Yes, for sure, we can make them that way. I can put them in notice on the website or email them directly to people. Send
Oh, there were some very
whatever.
good questions, and I think
Their answers were very detailed too. They got really good answers from them, so.
perhaps put it on the website.
Sure, yeah.
Because it was asked at a public meeting.
Yeah, it's public now, so we don't have to worry about the confidentiality.
Yes, Steve?
Just to Erwin's point, it actually just occurred to me that one of the things we may want to do, only because there are going to be quite a few questions possibly coming in, is just on the website do a Q&A.
Like an FAQ sheet or something, an FAQ sheet?
An FAQ, sorry, an FAQ page, just on what's happening. So that way, exactly, it's public and people can easily see.
Okay.
And it'll probably also stop quite a few additional calls from coming into the office, because they can just go straight to the website.
Right, more information we can provide. Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to other business then. Capital Development Reserve Fund Transfer, RM Building Repair Resolution for the bakery. Be it resolved to approve the transfer of $30,000 from the Capital Development Reserve Fund to the General Operating Fund for the purpose of building repairs to the RM Bakery property. May I have a mover?
I'll move that.
Graham, thank you. Second. Steve, thank you. All right. Does anyone wish to speak to this? Graham, do you wish to speak to it, or Lon?
Just to point out that this is in addition to the $5,000 that was already in the budget for the bakery. And just to observe, because I've been maintaining contact on this, that the cooperation between the new entrepreneur and Lon is proceeding very smoothly in terms of who pays for what. So we're looking after our taxpayers' dollars every step of the way while we are fulfilling our commitments to that building. So it's coming along not too bad.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Steve?
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but all of this money is coming from the reserve fund that was made for the bakery from the donations, correct?
No.
No.
I'll let Lon answer that.
No, Steve, we have a bylaw here for Capital Development Reserve Fund, and bylaw number 1604. And funding comes from that from multiple sources, subdivisions, other funds, and other things like that. And then part of that bylaw, it says that this money can be used for other modifications and improvements to municipal infrastructure approved by council.
Okay.
The money, I might as well speak to it
Carry on,
now.
yeah.
The community has rallied behind the bakery, and there's a lot of support for the new bakery and for Jen, and people it's unbelievable. I'm new to the RM, and it's great to see this, but the amount of donations that are coming in for that bakery are fabulous. We are keeping that in a separate account, so we know how much exactly is coming in for that. People are getting municipal tax receipts. It is for the purchase of equipment and cabinets and shelving that will be kind of remain with the building once, if Jen retires and moves on and a new baker comes in, that equipment will stay there, and it's meant to be kind of property of the RM. But Jen is directing those funds. She's doing a lot of hard work to get the equipment that she needs, and the cabinets that she needs, and then she lets me know what she wants us to purchase, and we write the check for those. This money here specifically is just going basically to the shell and the structure of the building. The flooring is about 15 to 20,000. There's some electrical work, there's about 5, and then the remainder is going towards ventilation that has to be repaired to it, so, and roofing. So.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, as Lon said, the money from the reserve is primarily going to the shell and the structure. The shell and the structure is an asset that's owned by all residents of the RM, and I think it's very prudent that the decision's been made to ensure that asset is well maintained.
Any other comments, Erwin?
Just one further comment on the donations that are being made for the bakery equipment. If you were to make a donation directly to Jen, you would not be eligible to receive a receipt. When the money comes through the municipality, a receipt is issued, which you can use on your tax return. The assets that are purchased with that money will be owned by the municipality, but will be available obviously for use by the new operator of the bakery.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, gentlemen?
As far as us eventually owning all or most of the equipment, the machinery, the devices down the road, that would enhance the amount of rent in the form of lease that we would expect to charge the operator. So we get something back on that as well.
And it makes it easier for someone to come in and start a new bakery.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything else? All right. All right, hearing nothing further, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Equipment Reserve Fund transfer for the dredger grant to the VB Estates. Be it resolved to approve the transfer of up to $25,000 from the Equipment Reserve Fund to the General Operating Fund for the purpose of a one-time grant to the Victoria Bay Estates Condo Corporation to financially assist the organization with the capital purchase of a dredger as per Resolution 2021/244. Further be it resolved that this $25,000 transfer be replenished in the 2023 budget over and above all other approved allocations to the Equipment Reserve Fund for 2023. And I have a mover. Kerwin? Graham, second. Discussion. I can just start if I may. This resolution is to provide the VB Estates Condo Corp with a donation toward the dredger. You know, in low water years, it's a little more critical than maybe this year, but this dredger will be able to help us out at the VB Marina, the swim docks, for instance, and many of our boaters, I'm not sure how many we have, but we have more every year, have had trouble getting into the VB Marina and into the marina off of PTH 59. So we did pass a resolution in 2021 to support this initiative, and we didn't, so now we will.
Yes, we are obliged to live up to the resolution of 2021. We looked at the possibility of postponing, delaying this payment, but we knew all along that it was going to have to go through. So this gets it done, and we are forced to replenish that fund next year. And the on the plus side is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year that we would say that we would otherwise have to chip into a dredging fund. So there is a payback.
Over time. Mike, did you?
Just to make sure it's clear, we're not the only municipality contributing. Alexander's contributing as well, with the lion's share of the funding having been raised privately. So these folks are serious about this dredger. Our contribution means that we're up towards the top of the list when it comes to dredging needs with this dredger.
And they hope to take ownership of it in the next couple of weeks. All right, Steve, any comments?
No, I think everything's been said. It's really unfortunate that we aren't able to pay for it next year, but commitment's a commitment, and if we don't move forward this year, then it will cost substantially more, so it's just, we made a commitment, we have to follow through. And it does make sense for us long term, for sure.
All right, anything further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Firefly Trust Fund account. This is to close and transfer the balance to the medical fund. So be it resolved to close the Firefly Trust Fund bank balance and transfer the full balance to the medical fund bank account. May I have a mover? Erwin, thank you. Second? Graham, thank you. I know about the Firefly Trust Fund. It was started by, in memory, I believe, of a resident. So can I ask how this came to be? How, like why, when did we get notification that we could close it down and transfer the funds?
This is on recommendation from Rain, that is there, it's not being used anymore. And he just said that we need to take care of this. There's on my to-do list.
Okay, perfect. Erwin?
Well, there's a doctor's reserve fund, and there was the Firefly fund as well. And essentially, they were for the same purpose, so I think Brendan's idea was just to consolidate the two items, simplify the accounting. It doesn't change, the balance, some of the two accounts will be the new balance.
Correct.
And this was one of the provisions that had been asked for by the doctor's committee to wrap this up and move the money over where they would expect it to be, so it ties the knot rather nicely and rounds things up.
And so we'll let the family who started the Firefly, but I'm a little concerned that we're doing this a little backwards. I think the family should have been notified and asked if that's what they wanted. If there's anyone still around, I can't remember the name of the family, unfortunately. That's my only concern, is that we might close this trust fund and they may have had another use for it.
It was designated for medical services. Perhaps we should refer back to the
use for the doctors.
Yeah, perhaps we should refer back to the doctor's committee and let them do a little research. Would that be appropriate, Lon?
It's up to you. Like I said, I don't know the history of this account.
Yeah, and it's
I
been...
was told that just to go ahead and transfer the money over.
Okay.
But I don't know the reasoning behind this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Pardon,
I just
Steve?
know that we table this motion for me, and just hold off on making a decision right now, so that way we can all feel a little more comfortable as to what's going on, just with this particular account.
But to clarify, we're not diverting funds for a purpose other than the support of the doctor's office. So, I can't see why there would be any opposition. We're just really simplifying the accounting.
I agree, but I just, and I don't mean to put blame anywhere. I just think it makes sense for us to ask the family who started the fund before we transfer the money. It's not, nothing has happened on it for years, years and years. So, yeah, like no money has come into it for years, and the money has just sat there. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I can work with Lon. We can track down the family who started it and make sure they're okay with it before they probably may not even know it exists. I'm not sure.
They may no longer exist, as a matter of fact.
But
Just a quick point of order.
Yeah.
Is that I did move that we table the motion, so I believe that the procedure will call for a vote after that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Steve, I missed that exact word that you just said. I didn't hear you say table it. I apologize.
Oh, sorry. I had made a motion to table this particular resolution, so that we can move forward. So I believe the proper procedure is to have a vote, and then we can proceed from that.
Just need a second on the motion and then a vote.
So a second on the motion to table?
I'll second.
Erwin, thank you. Any more comments? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Okay. So I'm sorry about that, Lon. I should have asked you earlier about that. It's been a busy few days. But we'll get it sorted out. Okay, parking rates 2022. As you know, every year, Kevin and Sandra come to us with their rates for the season. So be it resolved to approve the 2022 parking rates as per Schedule A. May I have a mover? Mike, thank you. Second? Graham? Thank you. And I have the rates. We normally do read them out. Just let me find them. Thank you. So for the season, it is going from 45 to 50. Second car, 40 to 45. 2 weeks, 31 to 33. 3 weeks, 33 to 35. Month, 35 to 37. Golf for the season is 32, going to 38. And shopping for the season is 32, going to 38. And it's noted that shopping and golf is also called an outside the beaches pass. So, for instance, if you come in and go to aerobics and sailing and swimming and you come in frequently, that's the pass you would apply for. Any comments, concerns? Mike?
Still the best parking rates anywhere around I've heard of.
It's a modest increase, and it's certainly in keeping with the increases in expenses in operating a parking lot.
Right. Okay, no further questions? All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, up next is the Doctors Clinic Committee amended terms of reference. Be it resolved to accept the 2022 Doctors Clinic Committee amended terms of reference attached as Schedule A. May I have a mover? Erwin, thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Graham, thank you. Did you want to speak to this, Erwin?
Yes. If I may, just a bit of history. When I was asked to go onto the Doctors Committee as a council representative, we determined that the last set of terms of reference documents were done in 2014. And they were fairly basic. Looking at that material, I thought it might be appropriate if we expanded the terms of reference to provide more guidance to future committees as to how the doctors themselves would operate and be accountable for, and also we added an additional terms of reference document for the actual operation of the committee. Last year, a document was passed, and when it was reviewed in more detail last fall by the Doctors Committee, they determined that they thought it was somewhat cumbersome. For many years, the Doctors Committee had been responsible and had provided for the maintenance and operation of the facility. What had been missing in the 2014 document was a detailed accountability structure, and that was added in last year. So the purpose of the amendments is to provide some additional clarity, to make it clear what the responsibilities of the committee are, and to provide them with some authority to maintain and operate the facility. But what's been added again is a higher level of accountability back to the councillor who sits on the committee, and then back to, in the case of any building maintenance, back to the councillor responsible for municipal buildings, and with respect to any purchases, other than just routine things, accountability back to the CAO.
Mayor, did you have a comment?
No, not really. There's a lot of work went into this, and credit to Erwin, and as you all know, we went through many revisions back and forth, and I think this boils it down to a very coherent, all-inclusive document that should erase some of the nagging doubts over who's responsible for what. So I like it, and I think it'll stand the test of time.
Mike?
Nope, agreed.
Steve? Okay. Can I ask about the lockbox that is still on the cabin exterior? Unless Public Works get the code for it, we can't replace the keys.
Public Works will be getting a copy of the code. I'm going to the cabin on Friday, and we'll get that straightened out, and a copy of the code will go back to Public Works.
Then they can put the keys in for you, for the doctors and the committee to use?
What I hope will happen is come fall, the keys would be removed back to Public Works.
Exactly.
Correct. That's a good idea, and that way...
But the understanding is that while the doctors are in residence, Public Works are not, no one is to enter that building without first of all getting permission from the resident doctor.
Absolutely. They're due their privacy. And I noticed we went back and forth a bit on plumbing and closing and starting up the water system and the septic service. And I just want to remind council, I see what's in the document, but this is not a leased building. We, as an RM, are responsible for this building, and we're responsible for the costs. You know, it's not a lease like the store, the Moonlight, or the bakery, who are responsible for organizing their own pump outs and plumbers. So I just want to make sure that we pay attention to that.
Well, I think the lines of communication have been definitely improving over the last little while. You know, in terms of, we have to remember that the Doctors Committee is a group of very dedicated volunteers. Many times they're down here just for the weekend. Accessing the property through Public Works was becoming very cumbersome. The people on the committee, you know what needs to be done. Goodness knows our Public Works people are very busy and very efficient, and if we can take a little bit of workload off of their shoulders, I think that's positive, especially when we can get it done on a volunteer basis.
Yeah, the committee should be commended for the years of doing this, years of opening and closing and meeting and greeting and staffing and doing everything they do. It is appreciated, and I know this council is very supportive of the doctor's clinic and keeping it open.
Yes, Erwin and I have both met with members of the doctor committee, and we're pretty much on the same page in terms of what has to be done and who's going to do it, and this document underlines that.
Okay, thank you so much. Erwin, anything further?
Just a final comment, you know, Victoria Beach should be very proud of the, you know, the track record that we have in terms of providing local, you know, professional medical services. There aren't too many communities, especially recreational communities, that have that unique feature. And I think we, as a council, need to be supportive of, you know, maintaining that service on a going forward basis, because it's special. You know, when my granddaughter scraped her knee, she was able to go over there and get things patched up, you know, as opposed to having to go to Bosinger or back into the city. So it's a pretty unique, special service, and I think we need to make sure we do whatever we can to maintain it.
And I noticed the group is having a cleanup this Sunday. The doctors committee's having a cleanup.
About that, that's...
The 12th is Sunday.
That's yard work and clean out.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, gentlemen? No. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Earl. All right. Moving on to the fencing tender for the waste and recycling site. Whereas the RMVB placed a tender for fencing the new waste transfer site grounds and received 3 bids for chain link fencing, barbed wire, all gates, labor and supplies, including GST. We received 3 bids, one from Wallace & Wallace for $32,611.51. Best Way Fence, $33,213.60, and Midwest Fence for $35,816.88. Total Yard Works was invited, but they did not submit a bid. I will have ask for some discussion before we approve the award.
Mike, can you give us an outline of what, sort of roughly what is included in the tender?
Is a motion required before discussion?
Well, bids are always difficult because.
Okay, I understand.
It's a resolution.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Essentially, this is one of the last phases of the new waste and recycling, for lack of a better term, compound. For those who may not have seen it, and I hope you haven't been able to see it because you shouldn't be able to see it. It was intentionally designed that you can't see it from Highway 59 or from the MTS or from the 1919 trail. Is it the MTS trail that runs north of 59? This is essentially where our bins and recycling will be relocated to. The fencing is for the protection of our residents, and it is also for the protection of our wildlife. A driving force behind all of this for me has always been the safety of our residents in terms of human-bear encounters, but also for the safety of the bears themselves. I mean, we create lures for them, and we teach them the bad habits that get them trapped, relocated, and ultimately destroyed. And we somehow have to end that cycle, and I think this is a great first start towards making Victoria Beach a far more bear-smart community. The fencing will provide enough area that residents pedestrians and cyclists will be kept separate from any kind of vehicle. And so we have the pedestrian and cyclist safety. There will be enough room for the garbage truck to get in, maneuver, empty, service the bins, and also for that large GFL truck to be able to get in and out and efficiently replace the full recycling bins with new empty recycling bins. And there should still be some room at the back of the compound where Public Works can actually store some of their equipment as well. So it's out of sight, it's out of the way. It'll be readily accessible for pedestrians and cyclists, especially folks coming from the VRA up 59. It's actually closer, a little bit closer to the information office and 8th Avenue than the existing unsightly site, which is located right in the Public Works parking lot. And we're also working with the province right now to further enhance the safety by the addition of an access just for the waste and recycling site. So everything is moving forward as quickly as we can.
So that we can fill in the blank on the resolution, Mike, are you prepared to recommend one of these bidders?
I would be safe in recommending the Walls and Walls bid. They are number one, the low bid. Number two, they are certainly a very reputable company. I've seen their work around the RM, and it always strikes me as being pretty top-notch work. And I think they could get the job done efficiently, effectively, and in a very timely manner. And I can only think that we'll be very happy with the results.
Okay, so there's no good reason to accept a higher bid. That's good enough for me. Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
Just to echo Mike's comments, Walls and Walls is a well-known Manitoba company with a long-term reputation, so I feel quite confident with them.
Thank you. Steve, any comments?
No, I mean, I'm not in favor of the location that was chosen, but this fence cost was going to be required regardless. even if it was my preferred spot, so I'm fine with it. And yeah, Wallace and Wallace seems like the best way to move forward.
And I'd like to thank, I think we should all thank Mike for the amount of effort that he spent into this to bring it to fruition. Congratulations. Good work, Mike.
Getting there, Mike.
Thank you, that's right, thank you. We're not at the fruition phase yet, but we're getting a lot closer.
And thanks to Lon for getting these invitations out. So, gentlemen, hearing no further discussion, I need a mover and a seconder for whereas the RMB be placed a tender for fencing the new waste transfer site grounds and received 3 bids for chain link fencing, barbed wire, all gates, labor and supplies, excluding GST. I read the previous amounts. Be it resolved to approve the bid award to Wallace & Wallace fences and doors in the total amount of $32,611.51, excluding GST. May I have a mover? You may. Mike.
I'll be happy to second it.
Graham, thank you. Any further discussion, gentlemen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. And so who notifies Wallace & Wallace? Lon? All right, thank you so much. All right, up next, is the office, summer information office staff wages or gate office wages. Be it resolved to approve the 2022 gate office wages as per Schedule A. May I have a mover? Someone? Mike, thank you, second. Graham, thank you. Council has seen the wages on Schedule A. Are there any concerns?
No.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Up next is the cemetery succession planning, and this is a discussion that council needs to have. Some information was sent to us from one of the board members of the cemetery planning committee, and as you know, it's under their care. Did you all receive that information from Mr. Green?
Yeah.
The cemetery's been under their care and control, and it's a volunteer group of individuals, and they've been doing this for many years. I understand their desire to have this property looked after by the RM. It makes sense that it comes under our umbrella. I think we might need a bylaw. I'll leave that in Lon's hands for a community cemetery. We'll need to get a map of the area. We'll need to know where the plots are, how many are used, how many are available, how many are pre-sold. We'll need to have a look at the figures that were given to us. There's comparisons to other cemeteries in the area. If we're going to take it over, I think we have to determine what the appropriate cost would be. Public Works does mow the grass and they do some weed whacking, but at this point, and I don't know if we would change it, but the person buying the plot is responsible for getting the excavation done. Right? So, and if we take it over, we will be responsible for it. We'll be responsible for the admin of it, the administration. And that is one of my concerns, that we have a small administrative staff. So I don't want to overburden them. Maybe it won't be that much. I'm not sure, but these are things that I've been thinking about. So what does council have to say? Marvin?
I currently am president of a religious cemetery in the city. And I think we have to be a little careful about just quickly taking over responsibility, because it becomes essentially a perpetual obligation. I don't see a balance sheet here. I mean, typically what happens when a cemetery is required to create a perpetual fund, which is intended to provide for the ongoing maintenance of the cemetery well into the future. If that doesn't exist, then we could be taking on a responsibility that we may or may not be. It may have a longer tail than we think. But clearly, the historical value of the cemetery is very important, and it must be maintained. And the stories of those individuals must continue to be told. But I think I would suggest that it might be appropriate to create some dialogue with the existing board, I'd be happy to get involved. As I said, I'm currently president. It's a job I'm dying to get out of.
Yeah, we didn't get into one here. Wonderful.
Pun intended? Or?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I think it's something we have to do a little bit more research on. It's not a simple task.
And I think we need to make sure that if we do agree to take it on, after conversations and looking through everything, we have to make sure we can do a good job of it.
Exactly. And looking through the spreadsheet that was provided, with no disrespect to Mr. Green, and before him, back to Helen Trainer and so on and so on, I'm having trouble figuring out just what is our current rate per plot. They seem to vary quite a bit. Helen used a lot of her personal discretion with this, so we need to tidy it up so we're taking over something that has a clear structure with clear rules.
And they would be more than happy to get together with us to talk about it.
Yeah.
Mike or Steve?
That would be something for an in-camera session, I think.
Yes, it would, yeah.
Yeah, or perhaps a phone call, a letter from our CAO to Mr. Green asking when would be convenient for him to sit down and let us come to grips with this. It's a little bit like our takeover of the civic science, but it's a much more important and enduring project that we're taking on here.
So let's do a bit of research and have some discussions, but that's why I wanted to have this discussion.
Good.
All right, anything further on that topic? Okay.
So essentially, we're going to open up a dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not expecting us to take over immediately. They're hoping, but they know that this is going to be a work in progress. And kudos to them for all their years of volunteer service to keep this little cemetery going. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful
They're
cemetery.
seldom recognized. I mean, the doctors committee, they're a little more visible, but the cemetery people are behind the scenes, and I don't think they quite get the credit that they deserve.
All right, thank you. So now, is it all right if we move on to disaster financial, or do you have another one that you prefer to go first with? All right. Whereas, this was provided by our emergency consultant, and Lon, I'm not sure if you had any input into it, okay. Whereas the heavy rains from April and May have caused widespread damage to private and municipal property and infrastructure within the RM of Victoria Beach, and whereas this event creates a burden exceeding the financial capacity of those impacted, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the RM of Victoria Beach requests the Government of Manitoba declare the event eligible for disaster financial assistance for the public and private sectors to provide compensation for expenditures related to preemptive and restoration of damages. May I have a mover?
All of that.
Graham, thank you. Second? Everybody, Steve will give you this one. We'll give you the second.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Steve gets the start.
Steve gets the second on that one. So, council did have a meeting with our fire chief and our emergency consultant on Saturday or Sunday? Sunday. And this was recommended, and I need to give Councillor Asperdy credit for bringing it forward and talking to our emergency consultant about this opportunity. This does not mean we've declared a state of emergency. It means we're asking for disaster financial assistance, and I think what we're looking for is help to rebuild the dike at Albert, or at Wandising for one, and possibly some work in Albert Beach, possibly. So.
It's a well-crafted resolution by our resident expert, and thank you to Steve for his input. So I think it's an important resolution for us to pass at this time. And then if and when we get to disaster relief, God help us, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Steve, did you want to make some comments?
Yeah, so The point of everything that we're looking at doing right now is to protect the RM from any sort of major disaster. The reason why I wanted everybody to get together and to try to pursue all the options is to be as proactive as possible rather than reactive. I will thank everybody for coming to the table and being prepared to go forward with this. We have one of the best teams in the business, and through her work, we've been able to basically provide as much protection for the RM as we can, as we can muster. Worst case scenario, you may see additional armament along the beach. It does not mean rocks. It doesn't mean boulders right now. It means it could be super sandbags. If we start to notice that the wind suddenly turned the wrong way, especially along the very susceptible areas like Albert Beach or Wanasing, we can set those sandbags up very quickly and get them filled up to help to protect the worst case scenario, which would be a breach of the dike. We'll do everything that we can, but in the meantime, we are being as proactive as possible. And I'd only like to just add one more thing, which is that, as Mayor McMorris said, this is not declaring a state of emergency, but we're obviously not ruling it out if the need should arise. We'd be the first ones to jump on that if it's necessary.
Correct. Thank you. And I can advise that about 550 super sandbags, they're 50 to 60 inches high and quite wide, were dropped off at Public Works yesterday. Trevor and Brad went down to St. Pierre Jolie, I believe, to pick up the MAMEC truck and trailer, and that MAMEC stands for Manitoba Association of Municipal Emergency Coordinators. And that trailer is full of pumps and emergency equipment that we may need at a moment's notice, including tents even, in case we have an incident where we have to shelter in place or run a command center. So there's lots of equipment in that truck if we do need it, and the pumps just may come in handy. And that arrived today, so that is in our fire hall parking lot. Erwin?
Yeah, just to clarify on the MAMEC involvement, they've been very helpful. The equipment is there on a standby basis. It will not be deployed unless the emergency is determined to be serious. So. And the sandbags are empty.
Yeah. So they will need to be filled, so that will slow things down a little bit. But, yeah. And the MAMEC trailer and truck are here. We are members of MAMEC, so we get this free of charge. When and if we use any of the supplies, it goes back to their headquarters and is replenished at no cost to us, is my understanding.
There's a $500 charge.
There's a $500 charge, that's correct, pardon me.
For gas.
Yeah, and gas. Yeah, but it is there, I don't know, yeah. Go.
I was only going to comment on the time that it takes to fill the sandbags. When I was asking Brad, he said a matter of minutes to fill one bag, especially if we had a fully operational skid steer, which again, moving forward, I would really like to see us move forward with a proper skid steer next year. It is so important that we have one. But even without one, we'd be able to call in some additional resources to fill them up, as I said, in a matter of minutes. So while it may seem, especially for those in the restricted area who've seen them before, like it would take hours to fill these, just because of the equipment that we can call in at a moment's notice, it would only take a few minutes to start setting them up. So even if we do face something like we did back in 2011, might we be able to armor the whole bank? No, but it's in the most dangerous areas, the most susceptible areas where we should be able to react quickly and reinforce the bank as necessary.
All right. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Up next, Provincial Trunk Highway 59, request to Manitoba Infrastructure to lower the speed limit from 70 to 50 kilometers from 504 and 59 intersection west. So whereas the final 1.64 kilometers of PTH 59 from the intersection with Highway 504 to the entrance gates of Victoria Beach is restricted to 70 kilometers per hour year-round, and whereas most highways in the province provide for a further speed reduction from 70 to 50 kilometers per hour at or near the entrance to a town or community, and whereas there are a number of intersections and driveway access points along this final 1.64 kilometer length before it dead ends at the Victoria Beach entrance gate, therefore be it resolved to make a recommendation to the Province of Manitoba Department of Transportation and Infrastructure that the above-named final 1.64 kilometers of Highway 59 be designated a 50 kilometer per hour zone on a permanent, non-seasonal basis. May I have a mover? Graham, and Erwin, will you second? Thank you. Erwin, do you want, or Graham, do you want to speak to this?
Well, this resolution asks highways if they will consider the reduction. It's a formal application. I think that it's very much in the interests of safety, but the hidden meaning is also behind the fact that if we get this, it might bring us one step closer to getting an access road to our waste and recycling. So that's the dirty little secret behind this, but we're not prepared to give up on this. We're going to keep pushing every lever we can to get that access road through. And I think that this would may very well go a long way. So we can only ask, let's ask.
Okay, any other comments? Erwin?
Just to clarify, the existing summertime speed limit drops to 70. Are we talking about starting, having that speed limit drop to 50 at just north of the Safi Road? And all the way to
No.
the gate?
No, this is just from the turnoff at 504
Okay, so
and
the
59.
junction of 504 and 59.
But that is always 70 kilometers an hour,
It's year-round.
year-round.
Right.
So you're asking about from Safi Road north to...
So that won't change. It'll be a seasonal.
Seasonal 70.
70.
From 100.
Right.
What?
You're gonna have a lot of speeders,
Yes, we will.
and you're gonna have a lot of very antagonized drivers. I think reducing the speed just ahead of the intersection of Atia and 59 to 50 would serve the purpose, and I think it may even have a better shot of being passed by infrastructure.
Steve, you have a comment?
It's not something I can get behind. I don't see a need for it. We have the 1919 trail for all pedestrians who've been trying to redirect them, stop over to that road. I think that we can do more to get them there. And I just don't see the need to drop down to 50 there. I understand for the parking lot, but again, I also don't, I can't agree as to where we put that, as I said, the parking lot, the waste and recycling. I can't get behind this at all.
Gentlemen, anything further?
I wouldn't have any aversion to dropping down to 50 from Atia Road west to the gates. But let's go with this and see what we get. And we may have to take another run at it based on from Atia Road. As many times as it takes to get this into their heads that we're going to build an access road to our waste and recycling.
One of the other things to consider too is the traffic coming into the market and traffic coming to and from events here at the social scene. They're trying to get across there to get to the market or to leave an event or come to an event, and people are going 70 or 80 down that stretch.
Yeah.
You know, it's 1.64 of a kilometer.
Yep. It is a legitimate safety issue above and beyond our skullduggery on the access road.
It's under 2 kilometers, but realistically, that's going to become a very long 2 kilometers. And I think reducing the speed to 50 in advance of the community center at Atia Road will have a better chance of passing by infrastructure.
Mike, you should move an amendment, and then we can vote on the amendment, and then vote on the amended resolution. Amended resolution.
I would move that the resolution be amended, that a speed reduction from 70 to 50 would be if I'm not saying this properly, but we would petition infrastructure to erect signage that would take the maximum speed from 70 kilometers down to 50 kilometers by the time it reaches Atia Road. And whatever the standard highways distances are for reduced speed warnings, and then 50 from Atia Road to the information office, to the parking lot.
That's a tough amendment.
So
I'm sure Lon can figure it out.
how about, therefore be it resolved to make a recommendation to the Province of Manitoba Department of Transportation Infrastructure that the above named final 1.64 kilometers of Highway 59.
That's no longer 1.64.
Just say, starting at the intersection of
At
504
the
and Atia.
intersection of Atia Road and Highway 59.
Yep. And,
West.
Before it,
yeah.
That's right, yeah.
I got it. I think
Go ahead.
I'll be okay with
And I thought if it would help, I can scale it up and give you the mileage figure, so that the final 0.329 kilometers of the ass end of 59, I can give you that while you're writing that bylaw, okay?
I would imagine that's almost a section of land, like a mile squared. No? From 504 to Atia? Some of those properties on Atia are 1 acre parcels, right?
I think
I'm
it's
okay.
less.
You okay?
Because if you're heading west from 59 towards the Ontario Beach,
At Atia
at
Road.
70 kilometers up that intersection, the speed reduction is going to be hitting 50 kilometers before you hit.
Before you get it to your road.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's going to be reduced to 50 before you.
And then once you hit
and then
Atia
you're
Road,
heading east, and
it's-
you hit Atia Road, and then the speed level will increase after that.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't think.
You got it.
That's right.
All right.
Whatever, essentially.
all right, so is council happy with those proposed amendments?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike, I guess, second with that.
So can I get a motion to approve the amendment?
You need to approve the motion to amend and then vote on the amended resolution.
All right, so Mike made a motion. Mike, will you please make a motion to amend the resolution?
I move that the motion be amended to what Lon says it is now.
Yeah, as discussed.
Approximately 1 kilometer.
That
Just take Atia Road west to the gate,
Yep.
it's 50 kilometers an hour.
Yeah,
And
there we go.
everything
There you
east
go.
of Atia Road to the highway, the
It's
504 junction is 70 kilometers.
It's 7
Okay,
which is also important because people that are moving west on 59 towards 504 are merging with faster traffic. So,
right. Right. All those in favor of, oh, I need a seconder for that motion. Graham, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
Sorry, the vote is for the amendment?
The vote is for for the motion to amend the resolution.
So now you
Oh,
vote on the
resolution.
amended resolution.
I'm not backing the resolution, no.
Okay. And the next vote then, help me out here when
It
I,
will be to vote on the amended resolution.
all right, so we have amended the resolution to read, that I guess it's the final paragraph that changes, no, 2 paragraphs that change, 3 paragraphs, because it's no longer 1.64 kilometers.
No, I would just change it from everything west of Atia Road is 50 kilometers, and everything east of Atia Road is 70 kilometers.
Yeah, that's
fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Whatever he said.
okay. All those, any further questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Opposed?
Steve?
Steve?
Steve.
Thank you. Carried. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Graham. Let's see what MIT has to say. Single-use plastics resolution. Just need to find the actual resolution. All right, be it resolved that bylaw 1634, regulation and reduction of single-use plastic items, be given first reading. May I have a mover, Steve? Thank you. Second? Mike? Thank you. And discussion, Steve, I'll let you start this one off, please.
So, I mean, I don't really know where to begin with this. Single-use plastics, they are unbelievably detrimental to the prosperity of the planet. They're used once, they pollute our waters, they pollute our ground. There's obviously been more trash that I think I've been noticing, especially as the conifers have been breaking during the storms and we're feeling what's below. It costs us money for recycling. Only about 9% of plastic waste in Canada is actually recycled. So it's just, there's no reason why we should be using them at all, quite frankly. There are biodegradable alternatives. There has been far more than enough time for people to use bags that they can bring to either Safi's or bakery or wherever they're going to be getting their goods from. So they have their alternatives. I know that I, for one, have about 700 bags that are stockpiled in my car that I often forget until I'm at the cashier, but I think that's just about with everybody. The bylaw that Lon has helped to craft goes a couple steps further. It also would ban plastics for utensils and straws, but again, there are biodegradable options that the businesses that operate in our area can use. And one of the line items inside of the proposed bylaw would allow for the operators right now to use their stockpile of what they've purchased, but once they run out, they're out. And so from that time forward, they would be able to use biodegradable options and biodegradable options alone. And so for the municipality, this saves us a small bit on recycling costs, it saves the planet, and it's really just the right thing to do at this point. And we really can't wait for the federal government to move forward on this, because they've had long enough.
Okay, thank you. I do have some concerns about biodegradable. I have a niece in Vancouver who runs an amazing vegan restaurant. They source everything possible. They got biodegradable single-use containers, if you will, and cups and cutlery. They're only biodegradable in a recognized composting facility. So if you don't have that, then you're stuck throwing them in the garbage. So we have to be careful when we say biodegradable if in fact it's not going to be biodegradable in our community. That sense is false sense of, yay, look what I'm doing, which is great that we are trying to do something, but there's just a couple of things like that have come to my attention. And then I do notice that Safi's already asked us to bring our bags. I would imagine they'll probably start doing that in the VB store. I'm not sure, I haven't been to the VB store yet since it's been opened. I don't know what the bakery and the Moonlight plan, but what will the bakery do, for instance, if they can't get, if biodegradable doesn't work, and maybe it does now, I'm not sure, but if it doesn't, what are they gonna do if Mike wants to pick up a hot dog and French fries and take it to the beach? You know, what are their alternatives to put his stuff in?
I mean, we used cans for a very long period of time, but in seriousness to that question, I think that's a very valid point to make. A lot of companies lie, quite frankly. As you pointed out, they're only biodegradable in certain facilities. So that just takes, I think, some clarity in the definitions, which we can find. This is only first reading, so we can pass it now and amend it to fit, and then that should take care of that.
And that's why I asked the questions, because it is first reading and it's good to have the discussion.
The bakery traditionally has been paper. Brad only introduced the use of plastic with the onset of COVID, where he had to separate the stuff in the cabinets. So it may not be a problem for the bakery.
Erwin?
I don't see any effective date for this bylaw. I think it's only reasonable that we have provide some reasonable notice to our local business operators. They very well likely have, anticipating the summer season, will have an inventory of plastic bags now. And I think I'm fully supportive of the program, but we need to be reasonable and provide reasonable notice and advance notice so businesses can adjust accordingly.
And some of my concerns are also around enforcement. How do we determine and enforce that a reusable bag is able to be used 100 times?
Bag police.
We need bag police. I mean, so there's that as well. I mean, I know when we go to the store, we'll see that they may not be using the appropriate bags, or they're handing you plastic bags. That's one thing, but are we really going to call the police on them? I don't know.
No. It's again, it's not the, in this case, you would be on the customer, it'd be the business, so
Right.
you'd very easily be able to go see what kind of bags they have. But I mean, even that is not something that I can ever see this coming down to, although maybe if you're concerned about it, we can change some of the wording. But I mean, reusable is really just something that can be used multiple times. So I think that the operators know what that means. Most of us know what that means, but yes, in law you do need to clarify some things. Again, we can amend this. We can amend this slightly. Erwin, to your point, and I can't find the subsection right now, but I can send it to you. But it basically states that once businesses run out of their stockpile, essentially, I'm paraphrasing heavily, but it allows for businesses to use what they have on hand until they don't have any more. But maybe a date might be a good idea.
I think what Erwin is getting at is we need to phase this in, or just like our bear-proof bins, our bear-resistant bins. We said, okay, you've got till May 1st, 2021, or 2022, pardon me, and now it's going to be, okay, May 1st, 2023 due to supply chain problems. But I think Erwin's right. I think our proprietors in the area have planned for their summer season. So if we can say by December or January 2023, this will be in effect. And I think too, I'd like to just say plastic, single-use plastic items. But then again, what do you do about single-use plastic bottles? And Steve, we've had this discussion before, right? What do you do about those? I mean, you can't get rid of them. So.
No, and that's not defined inside the bylaw. I would love to throw it in, especially in Canada. There is no reason that you should ever need a plastic bottle full of water unless you're stockpiling for when the power goes out, and that's why trainers there. But sadly, we can't get rid of them right now. So. There has to be some exceptions just because of how our society is being run right now. But in terms of what we can do easily and effectively, I think that this hits on the crux of the matter.
I agree. And then, sorry, one of my other comments was, I don't think we should be telling our businesses how much to charge for their bags. I think that's entirely a business decision. I don't think we should be, it's not like we're getting any money back from it. I think that should be, I don't think that schedule is even needed. But that's my comment, and this is first reading, so that's why we're discussing it.
Let's get it out, let's pass first reading, let's engage our local businesses and get some reaction from them, and let them take a read and let them tell us what they're prepared to do or not prepared to do.
I think it's a good idea to get the local businesses engaged, but also people or community or groups like the social scene, the club, country market. There's all sorts of probably single-use plastics used for various events. So I think we need to make sure that those who are going to be directly impacted by this have a look through and give us their comments.
And the ad bags.
The ad bag, yeah, but that's sort of different. But yeah, so are you okay with that, Steve?
Oh, yeah, no, so we've had all the discussions and everything else. I just want to be able to get this down so we start moving forward with it. I think that a 2-week period between now and second reading, and there's even time between second and third, if we want. But there's far more than enough time to be able to make the amendments that we need to and clarify this, that, or the other. I think that to say $25 charge, most bylaws that you see out there will state something to that effect. The main reason that they put them in there is because, again, the idea is to limit how much waste is being generated. So you don't want people constantly buying paper bags for 5 cents to 25 cents is a little bit of an imposition. So you allow people, it gives people that ability to remember to get their reusable bags, or bring their reusable bags. But that's the reason that's in there. But again, this is all things that we can discuss after we pass it.
Can I call for a vote, please?
Just one more comment. Lon, you drafted the bylaw, did you, with Steve's help or guidance?
That's correct. And
Did you-
references across the province.
Did you borrow it? Did you borrow it from someplace, or was it a?
There's about half a dozen bylaws that I read, and
All right.
I took pieces
It seems awfully wordy. There's more stuff in there than. All right. It's just a comment. Perhaps we could whittle it down a little bit as we work our way through second and third reading, and consult with the people who are affected, the merchants. Period. Thanks.
All right.
Heaven forbid you should draft it.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Should there be a bylaw that says no?
Moving along.
moving along. All right, gentlemen. Any further discussion on first reading?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, Steve. And we'll be back and forth on this, I'm sure. And thank you, Lon, for getting that together. Is that all for the add-on resolutions?
that's all.
Brush pickup, yes, we did want to talk about brush pickup. Our contractor has become extremely busy with the emergency trees that he's had to take down for residents since the last storm. So we are moving our brush pickup. The final day for residents to put out brush is this Sunday, June 12th.
Yeah.
Brush pickup will start Monday, June 13th. And it will carry on for about 3 weeks, give or take. So please make sure your debris is outside on front of your property and hopefully lining up the same way, and all the big branches are limbed.
And no foreign materials, no dimension lumber, no metal, please, no plastic,
No plant pots,
no plant products, no garbage.
no
And-
garbage,
Hay bale.
no hay bales.
And no community deposits on Pine. Are we gonna get this out to our residents on our website?
I'm-
Coming real handy to know that you've got another week before the door.
I'm preparing another notice to residents. I wanted to get through today, and then,
Okay,
so we'll update
Thank
that.
you.
I'll send it to council first, of course.
that's good.
And it'll be on Facebook.
Yeah, Mike is pretty good at updating our Facebook page.
I just want to add one quick thing, just take a minute. I just want everybody to, again, take a look at what type of trees are breaking nonstop. They're conifers, they're designed to do this, they're designed to burn, the forest wants to burn. If you have deciduous, you look up and you can tell that the trees had conifers rot from the inside, you won't know, and you'll see that every time one snaps, it's usually rotting from the inside. So again, we need to remove and replace our trees every time a conifer breaks or you cut it out, replace it with a deciduous tree, and you won't have those types of problems moving forward in the future.
Okay, thank you. I will move on to correspondence. I want to thank our fire chief and EMO coordinator, Brad Patzer, Trevor Hallgren of Public Works, and a local contractor or two for acting so quickly to shore up and repair the dike breach in Wanasing on that May 31st storm. And thanks to a resident for being eagle-eyed and noticing the breach. They spent many hours monitoring the RM for flooding and erosion and fixing the dike quickly, averting damages to cottages in Wanasing. And I truly feel we're very fortunate to have such a dedicated, knowledgeable staff and contractors in the area who come to our assistance. Manitoba emergency measures, briefing notes. I don't know, I'm pretty sure all the council gets these. We get them on a daily basis. They're amazing, they're extensive, they've got all sorts of information, statistics, water flow information on the current conditions in our province. They're really, really a good set of documents that we get on a daily basis. The 2023 Tax Impact Open House for residents is Saturday, July 2nd, 2022 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's here at the social scene, I believe in the boardroom. Busy day at the social scene that day. There's other events going on. So if someone has a concern about their 2023 tax impact assessment statement that they received, come on down July 2nd from 9 to 2 p.m. And here we are, due to the scheduling difficulties in emergency tree cutting, the brush contracting starts Monday, June 30th. Residents have till Sunday, June 12th to put out their brush. And we also get calls and emails regarding dead or dying trees on municipal right-of-ways in the RM. Please leave an e-request for Public Works or phone them with reports of dead or dying trees on municipal roadways. Our Public Works team has a very lengthy list of trees, and I know everyone feels theirs are important, and they are, but we only have so many employees, so much time, so many tools, but we will get to them when we have the manpower and the time. That's what I have. Anybody else? Erwin?
Each of us will have received this water advice notice dealing with the boil water during the seasonal startup of our surface water system. My question is, at the beginning it says, until seasonal maintenance is completed. I was asked the question, how do we know when it's safe to drink the water? What sort of testing is done after the chlorination process has been completed? Perhaps, I don't have the answer to that question. Can someone answer that for me?
I hope I'm accurate when I say that the water is tested regularly. They test it daily at the plant and take the tests into the provincial lab on a regular basis as mandated by our license.
That doesn't solve the problem because the chlorination is in the distribution system. And that could be at my cottage, it could be at Mike's, well, Mike's not on the system, it could be at your cottage. So I'm just wondering, what are the procedures that are followed to determine that it is in fact now safe to drink our water?
They do test it at other locations. They don't just test it as it comes out of the plant. I know I have seen them testing it, for instance, in Albert Beach, right near Southeast Store. They take tests from there sometimes. I don't know how often. Can't answer that question, but they have to do what they're mandated to do by the province, and those tests have to be in. So I personally don't have any concerns about the quality of our water. Obviously, drinking water doesn't have any concerns about the quality of our water.
That's basically what I was asking, is what is the testing protocol to be followed after the seasonal shocking with chlorination takes place?
Well, then they have to send the tests into the lab. They take the tests into the lab, right, and they get those results back. When the lab says it's okay, they notify the province notifies the RM notifies the residents.
Does our CAO see those tests?
No, I don't think so. Maybe after the fact, they go to water treatment plant first. I think you copied on the email, but honestly, I wouldn't know how to read the test. That's why we have specialists in place to do However, if there is a bad reading on the water, we do get a direct phone call from the lab.
I just wanted to know what the protocol was, a procedure to confirm that the boil water order has been rescinded.
Well, our public works folks, and especially the folks that are trained in the management of the water plant, would know what these procedures are. Maybe we could ask them for a brief written description of just how exactly we go from a chlorine flush to a VB Connect message that says the boil water advisory is lifted.
Has it been officially lifted?
Yes,
Yes.
I received it through Connect.
Presumably, they, I got one.
Well, you're on the Albert Beach system, correct?
All right. But our system is fluoridated as well.
And testing takes place.
I know there has been some comments made recently that not all Connect users are getting their messages. I'm not sure if that may be part of your specific issue, but,
We've been getting them all winter, so.
Okay.
I'm surprised.
I thought I saw it on the website. The boil water is here with rescinded. That was on our site, wasn't it?
Should be.
And I would take that to be the surplus chlorine levels in there temporarily have dissipated to the point where we can now pass the test, so off you go.
so would you like more detail from the water plant operator or from the Office of Drinking Water?
You know, water is essential component of life, and you know, ever since we learned about the 50 million liters of sewage that got dumped by the city into the river, you know, I'm growing more concerned that perhaps we need to have a more rigid accountability to our public to reassure them that, you know, that the water is on a continuing basis to be safe. And, you know, information can set aside a lot of rumors and concerns.
Make the request for the information then.
All right, thank you. Anything else, gentlemen?
For the folks who are wondering about the bear-resistant bins, and especially the folks who continue to go to social media as the authoritative source of their information, if you've ordered a bin and have not yet received one, if you prepaid for your bin and have not yet received it, you will receive your bin. We will not keep your money and not give you a bin. As has been mentioned in many of these meetings and is also posted on the RM Victoria Beach Facebook page, which by the way is the authoritative source for information about the RM. Our supplier, like so many other suppliers in different industries, have been experiencing supply chain issues, resource issues. Our supplier can't seem to hire people to come and get our product finished. Well, they finally have some people in place, and they are working on getting our order of 250 bins to us, hopefully before the end of June. It's because of this delay that we've decided to move the deadline for bear-resistant bins from this year to next year. But rest assured, everybody who has ordered a bin, you will receive your bin just as quickly as we can get them out to you. Thank you.
And please visit our webpage. Please visit our official Facebook page if you want the facts. Call us, text us, email us, stop us on the avenue. We're happy to answer your questions.
The Facebook page is designed that you cannot leave comments because, again, it's meant to be information giving to our residents. It's not meant for editorial comment. However, any post that you see or any question that you have, you can message the RM through the Facebook page, and your messages will be responded to.
All right, thank you. All right, gentlemen, anything further? Steve?
Only because received a email on it. Fireworks are illegal in the RM. They're not allowed in the RM, so please don't bring them into the RM, because if you light them off, it's illegal. So just let me say that one more time. I know that we say it every year. I know we say it several times a year. But unfortunately, it bears repeating every single year. So stop it.
I will have to clarify, though, that if they are done by a professional fireworks pyrotechnics person with written permission from the RM for a special event, Canada Day, the VB Club used to get permission from council for that, and they were set off by a professional. That's one thing, we did give permission for that, but we don't generally give permission for fireworks unless there's a very good reason and a very safe way for it to be done.
And ask the people, yeah, and ask the people who have been fined in the past. The fines are heavy.
All right, anything else? All right, be resolved, the June 7th, 2022 regular council meeting be adjourned. Next regular council meeting to be held June 21st, 2022, 7 p.m. here at East Beach's Social Scene, number 3 Atia Road, Victoria Beach. May I have a mover? Graham, thank you. Second. Mike, thank you. All in favor?
All right.
Carried, thank you. Hockey game is still on?
Yes, I'm going to switch the.
Don't tell us the score, I want to go home and watch it.
Oh, he wants to put it on the screen while we're getting finished. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you to all the ghosts in attendance.